Hey there, if you are somebody who is interested in looking after the performance of your organization and you understand that culture, well-being, and mental health are critical to achieving that, you're going to want to listen up to this interview. I've got Matt Brun here. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
We're going to go through and explore his career, his history. He's only just returned back to Australia from working abroad, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad that he's back in the country. Bring our brains trust back to Australia and start exporting our knowledge. So stand by, people. We're going to record this live on YouTube. So we're going live to our usual YouTube audience. We're also building out some high quality stuff with our other cameras. So lots going on here, live on Instagram. And obviously we're going to drop this straight out onto LinkedIn later after the live feed's buffered on YouTube. So we're going to get straight into it now. This is Talking Business right here at Best Practice TV. Let us know, comment below and let me know if you are interested in culture, well-being, wellness. Previously, did you do anything in your workplace for the Are You OK Day that just happened? Was it last week?
Yeah, September 12th. Yep.
September 12th. So it'll be again, same date next year? Thereabouts.
So.
We'll see how we go. All right, we'll get into that. So
they're pretty good at promoting. You'll know when
they are. They definitely are. So look, I think that's probably a really good place to start. That was one day of the year.
Yep.
Like, I think let's start exploring the conversation about, you know, we were just before we came live on camera, we're starting to talk about, you know, what are some of the things that we could be doing on a more regular basis. We'll get into the detail and we'll introduce it, but for those people that are just going to jump on and watch a couple of minutes, what are we talking about here?
Well, look, I think that's a good segue in terms of the Are You OK Day messaging. And one of the things I really saw a lot of this year was people emphasising this is not just a one-day conversation. So in the past, you'll have seen organisations do take Are You OK Day as an opportunity to engage in discussions around mental health and wellness and ask that question, are you okay? And it's an important question to ask, right? It can have a really impactful meaning to a person. But now, yeah, as I said, like this year, for example, we held a special session at one of the companies I'm working with at the moment, and it was an opportunity to share some personal stories around, you know, why this day is meaningful to you, and to ask that question. And a load of people made the really interesting point, or the important point, that this is not just a one-day conversation. And even, you know, Graham Cowan, who's one of the most prominent and leading Are You OK Day speakers, Graham and I had a conversation recently, and if you check out his sort of profile on LinkedIn and a lot of the work that Are You OK doing, it's about spreading that message daily. And there's things, it's just a replicable, simple process that businesses can be talking to their people about. We can be asking each other. Us men were hopeless at that historically, right? Like just saying, "Are you okay, mate?"
Yeah.
So some of the messaging around that day now is a lot more. It just feels more real. So yeah, it was cool.
Okay, cool. So we'll get into some more detail, but I guess for, you know, we'll try to hold people's attention for a good hour if we can.
I can talk, mate.
Yeah, I know. So can I. But I'm going to let you do the talking because this is Talking Business. Let's go back to that point in time in your career when, or in your life. Let's go back to that point in time when you went, you know what, I'm really interested in helping people.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I guess people have always interested me. I've always cared, you know, I'm a good listener. I really do care about people. I think that's just something that's an inherent trait in people. I'm very open and honest. I'll say how I'm feeling, and I don't mind people expressing whatever feeling they have towards me. I like that sort of stuff. I'm a real touchy sort of person, so if I do that at any stage, just whack my hand away. But it's, I grew up in a, you know, very happy, loving house with a load of people around, and my father's Spanish, so Spaniards are somewhat passionate and more expressive, I guess, than...
Muy bueno.
Sí. So, I guess, you know, grew up with two brothers who were best mates of mine, my two best mates in the world, and it's just something that's never really troubled me, or something that's never really confused me. There's a lot of things in life I have no clue about and fail to understand, but sort of interaction with other people is what drives me and what I enjoy doing. So I guess, you know, I was a bit of we had some chat earlier about yourself at school and stuff. I was a nightmare, I think. I'm pretty sure I had ADHD that was never diagnosed, and had a mum who had me when she was only 18 years old. So I sort of grew up in a, you know, real carefree, laid back childhood, and then progressed through school, had no interest in anything other than girls in sport and what time the school bell rang. And then, when I got to university, I was, it's an opportunity to really sort of take stock of what do you want to do. And somehow I managed to do quite well at school and got to pick from a few things and ended up going in doing medical science and found that quite stale. Thought at first I wanted to be a doctor, and then I was, I remember going and doing a prac and seeing sick kids, and I just started crying. I'm like, this is not for me. And then got more into sort of the psychological side of things and started looking at behavioural psychology and taking an interest in that. And then uni came to an end, and it was like, oh, I'm not ready for this to finish yet. What other course can I do?
Yeah. Didn't
want to work. Went and saw a careers advisor, and he was like, I said, mate, I don't know what I want to do. It's not like I just did primary school teaching and come out and you're a primary school teacher. I did medical science and behavioural psychology. Now what? And so I ended up doing a postgraduate degree in occupational health and safety. Don't know why. Still don't know why. But it took me on an interesting path, I guess. Did well in that. Ended up taking a job at an oil refinery. I was nearby. I was living in Cronulla at the time and working out Kurnell. Yep. And baptism of fire, that is, going from a uni lifestyle, and I'm not a morning person, into 6 a.m. wake-ups a week, and gross. Anyway, just the whole environment. And it was it's a really high-risk industry, obviously, oil and gas, and so rules are in place for a reason, and especially from a health and safety perspective, really prescriptive, right? And I remember thinking from a really early stage, why there's so many rules that are focused on compliance and no one's talking to people. No one's about, and I was thinking, is this what this job's about? What have I got into? And I didn't last long there at all. I can't remember if I got fired or I quit. I probably got fired. And ended up moving on to another organisation. It was actually, I think, a government organisation. And same sort of thing. I went in and no one spoke about people. It was never about, I went through uni and we learned all about this behavioural-based psychology, behavioural-based safety, and I got into workforce and I was like, no one does this at all.
No, we're using the bottom of the hierarchy control to just put heaps of toner on paper.
Right, it's just, here's rules, here's another procedure, sign this form, because as long as you sign this form, now I'm discharged from my responsibility. That form does nothing for you whatsoever. But sign it, sit through a 3-hour induction where I'm going to just click a slide and everything's repetitive and you're taking nothing in and you're asleep up the back. That's cool, mate. I'll tell you the answers for the questionnaire at the end. It's just rubbish, right? And that was just how things were. And I used to challenge it and didn't used to make a lot of friends doing so. But I always thought things can be done different. And it wasn't until I joined a company, Lang O'Rourke actually, and they just did things differently, and it was sort of a bit of a, epiphany for myself. I was like, okay, cool. Now I've found my people. Like, I like this organisation. I like these people, and I was fortunate enough there to work with a couple of fantastic leaders, and got shipped off to an alliance, a rail alliance that I was on, and a lot of the messaging and the sort of behavioural-based psychology and the caring for people that they held within their business transferred across this alliance and the other alliance partners, and you saw it start integrating within the government client. And for the first time I started thinking, okay, I don't mind the field I work in now, because just like every 17-year-old kid growing up in Cronulla, you just dream of being a health and safety officer, right? Right? So it was there was a lot of periods through my career where I was just like, what am I doing? This is so dull, this is so boring. I've got crusty old men leading me with a clipboard, going this way, that way. Is this what this job is? And it was finally when I started working with those guys, I was like, okay, great. So this isn't all it is, and we can talk to people and care about people and ask, why are we doing these things? Is it helping you? Is it making this a safer place to work? Is it making a happier place to work? And look, this is still, the mental health side of things still wasn't overly discussed. It was definitely on the horizon. Floated around there for a bit, when worked for a couple of other organisations, a couple of international businesses, worked for a company called Alstom, and again, worked with a fantastic leader there, a guy by the name of Mark Coxon, and I really sort of learned from Mark the impact a business can have on its employees when they care. And I know that's just a fluffy tagline and people will say, but it's true. And I remember at the time when I was working with Alstom, I was going through a really difficult period personally. I was engaged, and she saw the light and left, which is good for her. It's a good decision. And we're mates. But like I was going through a really difficult time. I was trying to hold together this high pressure job. I was working Asia Pacific region. I was traveling all the time. And he used to just ask me, "Are you all right?" And he'd come and sit in my office and he'd have a chat to me, and he genuinely cared. And I'd say, yeah. And he'd walk out and I'd turn around and look out the window. And I'm like, well, I'm not all right, but, you know, and just those questions being asked and him showing how much he cared. And I would open up, and I started to open up and, you know, encouraged me to get some assistance, and I did, and went through the employee assistance program, all this sort of stuff. And I was like, wow, work actually helped me here. Like, work was a support to me. I didn't talk to my friends about how I was feeling. My parents are living overseas. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, so you don't want to burden your 2 younger brothers, right? Like, you're there to protect them, not the other way around.
Big brother.
Absolutely. So it's like, and it really opened my eyes to the actual impact an organisation can have, or a leader within an organisation, if they care. And he cared. He didn't have to do what he used to do. Moved on from there to another organisation, actually, and another gentleman who I'm still good friends with now, doing some work with him at the moment, David Watmo, and he was the same. He was a really, the smartest man in the room at all times. Brilliant leader of his organisation, but he just cared about his people. And so the impact that those men have had on my life and sort of shaping the way that I wanted to go was very, really important to me. And then, spent some time over in the US with Amazon, shipped over to Seattle. My mental health was at an all-time low, I reckon, when I went there, purely because of the weather. I'm not sure you've been to Seattle.
Absolutely, the rainy city.
Oh. Anyway, if anyone's watching from Seattle, hey, it's a lovely spot.
Yeah. No, they know.
The hiking's great.
They know.
Yeah.
They want to be here in Sydney.
So people started talking about this seasonal depression. I'm like, what are you talking about? I moved there in summer, so they tricked me, right? So I turned up in summer in that 6 weeks a year when it's beautiful, and I was like, this place is amazing.
And the weather sets in.
The weather sets in, and it just doesn't change, does it? So, but through my work at Amazon, I worked as part of the global health and safety team, and the people I've worked with there are just the most amazing, compassionate, innovative, interesting, intelligent, any more words with I, group of safety professionals I've ever met. And the pushing of each other in the room and the information sharing and the innovation, like if you're lucky enough to work for a company like Amazon, you see things that just don't seem like they're real. We helped them open up a vendorless store where you walk in and you pick up something off the shelf, and all of a sudden your phone's clicking and you just bought it. And a lot of the stuff that they were doing was around people. They're a very process-driven organisation, and they need to be, right? They do that distribution process and the sophistication involved in that. It requires very strict, regimented processes, right? But they really started to focus on why we're having incidents, why are we having high levels of absenteeism, why are people at work and they're inefficient, they seem distant, and they really were looking at innovation and ideas in the mental health space. And just being able to work with that team there really just triggered my, just heightened my already my interest in following that sort of course, and really sort of just trying to look at trying to apply the same philosophies and diligence that organisations apply to the protection of physical health, and the same strategy and same data-driven solutions, and asking why we're not doing that from a mental health perspective. Right? Why is it just are you okay day is the only time we'll talk about it, or why is it this really well-intentioned, poorly executed space? And there's a number of reasons for that, and there's a number of different businesses that have very drastically different risk profiles, levels of sophistication, access to resources. It depends on the number of employees you've got and how mature they are as an organisation. But it's super encouraging to see, in the discussions I have, just checking out LinkedIn each day, just the number of discussions around mental health in the workplace. And as I keep getting back to, it's if you care about your people and you offer an opportunity for those conversations to occur, you're going to be in a far better position. You're going to be an organisation that people want to work for. You're going to have reduction in absenteeism and presenteeism and all this downtime and all these costs associated with people being off work through workers' comp and all these avoidable things. but you're going to have a happy, productive workforce, and you're going to be able to assist the people that need assistance and show them that you actually care. So, yeah, it's really encouraging to see how many organisations are moving from a well-intentioned space to actively caring and looking at it as a strategic aspect of their business that they can really influence.
Yeah. So if we, on that particular point, if we take one step back, if you're watching this, we'll get to requirements in a second, because what struck up this conversation was discussions about ISO 45001. But if we take a couple of steps back, what we know at our level, and this is sometimes I've got to remind myself that I get so far advanced in the knowledge and information that I've got to help the team of people that are with us on this particular journey.
Yeah, for sure.
If I'm sitting in a medium-sized organisation, what might and I don't know.
Yep.
And this is just something that I'm just stumbling across,
yep.
because like I saw it everywhere all over social media the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
Or it's been being talked about the last 12 months. People are starting to understand, there's physical, chemical, biological, and psychological hazards.
Yep.
That's what we've been using like psychological hazards for 20 years, for example. Right now, today, in a medium-sized organisation that really hasn't thought about resources, that sort of stuff, give me some of the symptoms that we might be seeing of maybe we might have an issue in our organisation.
Yeah. Well, that approach in itself is, I think, part of the problem, in that it is a sort of suck it and see, wait and see till we've got an issue before we do something about it.
I hear you 100%.
And but there obviously there's organisations that won't have information around what's going on with their people. They'll have people that are taking sick days more.
There we go.
More
so sick
prevalently,
days, yeah.
right? And it's a difficult one because you don't want to be intrusive, right?
I hear.
Margaret's off sick 3 days this week. She was off sick a couple of days last week, and it's not the type of thing where companies are going to say, "Are you okay?" So there are triggers for sure. You can have a look at the absenteeism, presenteeism. You could take a look at your workers' comp claims and have a look if you've got some, outstanding stress claims, etc. Things such as employee feedback surveys are an interesting and very simple process of just getting a confidential survey which allows your people to say, how are you feeling about your job? Do you feel satisfied with the role that you're in? Do you feel you have enough support to do your job correctly? Are you appreciated for the work you're doing? Are you working too many hours? Are you fatigued? Are you suffering as a result of work? Some simple confidential surveys like that. People might not want to put their name to that sort of stuff, but an organisation can start gathering some info. And you can create some really simple wellness scores for an organisation, where you can say, okay, 65% of our people are saying that they don't feel appreciated at work. We've got a problem. But without having that information or that data at hand, it's difficult for a business to interpret whether or not there's an issue.
Yeah. So where I sort of wanted to go with the conversation, because I see, let me think if it's 2 or 3, but there's definitely a second school of thought, which is there's those of us that genuinely care, and then there's also so we might say, and we'll get to tactics, because I think that what I want to try and avoid in the conversation is I don't want you guys to go away from this conversation and listening to this interview and what we're talking about and going, right, I've got my 10 things, I need to go and implement that, and that. Really, because that's just, great. I want you to go away and execute, right? And I want you to get some momentum, and I want you to get into this conversation in your organisation. But I also want you to be thinking a bit more strategically about it. So for the people who are completely insensitive, who and I'm going to put my hand up and say that I'm one of those people, that I do genuinely care, but my little indicators,
the antenna's not going off.
That's exactly right. So I can tell if with some body language and those sorts of things, and maybe I'm not giving myself credit for being as good as I am.
Yeah.
But if I am the classic Aussie male leader, who is more likely to be insensitive than the classic female Australian leader, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to discriminate here and say that ladies are genuinely a little bit better than Aussie males
at everything.
Great. There you go. So if I am a little bit if I know, and I'm self-aware enough that I'm a bit insensitive,
Yeah.
that I am pushing really hard, that I am driving my team, I'm a leader and I'm driving my team really, really hard.
Yeah.
What do I do? What should I start to look for? Like, we can do those tactics, but how could maybe your advice on how, if I know that I'm a bit insensitive, I know that I'm starting to become a bit self-aware, what work can I do on myself to start to look or listen?
Absolutely. Listening is the first step, right? So if you believe that you might have an issue within your organization, as if there may be some psychosocial risks that aren't being addressed, as if there's some pressures on people, and you're starting to see it, and you might see a change in sort of the morale within your organization, you might see increases in small things like sick days, or you might see that and be able to tell that people are fatigued or burn out. It's incumbent upon you to do something about it, right? So it's 2019. We can't walk around with our hands over our eyes anymore. And there are, as we said, there's some small, simple things you can do, and it all starts with listening, offering that opportunity for people to talk, right? And it might not be talking face to face. It might not be necessarily creating a HR division within a business, depending on the size and complexity. That might be completely impractical. But it's about making sure that your employees and your staff understand that you care and that there's an opportunity for you to seek assistance or to raise issues if you have them, and that they'll be addressed and they'll be cared for. Something really simple that a lot of businesses do, they have an employee assistance program, right? So if you've got an employee assistance program and that's all you've got, and you're a small organization, you're pretty low in terms of your psychosocial risks, you don't have anything that would trigger concern for you in terms of, there's nothing alarming going on within our business. We think we're fine, but we might not be. Employee assistance programs are great in that instance. That's a fantastic option. Make sure your people know about it. There's plenty out there that offer a wide range of services, and they're a fantastic support for an organization that, as I say, low risk, doesn't really have anything that would suggest that something's going wrong within their business. But as a leader of an organization, I think the most important thing you can do is just show people you care. Have these conversations. There's always an opportunity for you to, show appreciation, show empathy. These people are out there, all you're doing is giving them money for their time. Do more. You show them that you care. Have these conversations. Thank them for the work they've done. And if you're, as a good leader, if your door's always open and people feel comfortable in talking to you, you'll learn more about what's going on. Yeah,
book recommendation, I've been looking for it, I just found it, which is the Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace by Gary Chapman. That's something we've deployed here at Best Practice. You've heard about this, right?
Yeah.
So
I've given that as a gift once, actually.
There you go. So the 5 love languages is something we've been deploying here at Best Practice for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding each individual's love language, predicated on this concept that you're trying to make bids for connection, or I'm trying to,
for sure,
thinking I was a bit insensitive, and thinking I genuinely want to say thank you to somebody, but I'd say thank you to some people and they'd light up, and then I'd say the same way to someone else, and they wouldn't. And I'm like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And I make this bid for connection, but I didn't realize it's 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
And so campaigning 5 love languages as an example, until the socially responsible one that doesn't include touch came out.
My favourite form.
Well, that's exactly right? And Kelly, who just walked in into the studio here, is sorting out battery charges in the background. He's touch, I'm touch, and so from that perspective, it's a critical thing, I think, to think about, is that some people are going to be gifts, they're going to be words of affirmation, they're going to be quality time, they're going to be acts of service, so they're going to be touch, and so I think the first thing is to say, well, that's a tactic. Before we get to some of those tactics again, and we'll circle back to them, if I'm that insensitive person, and if I now know that I could be doing some listening, and you're coaching them, what would be the 3 simple questions that you could just teach them to just, even if they're not practiced, they're version 1 of themselves, not version 3 or 4 or 5, and they're just learning how to do this. What could be 3 questions they could ask to start a conversation?
Look, I think that "Are you okay?" is and I think that's why that messaging resonates so well, and why their marketing is so fantastic, is it is so simple. It's just to the point. Are you okay? It's open, and it leads a person on the conversation to take it wherever they want. I think it's always important to ask, is there anything I can do more? Be sort of introspective and self-reflective enough to say, what can I do to help you? And then just asking, I guess, look, there's a thousand different ways you can
Absolutely,
go about this, but
100%. I get it,
like in
yeah,
terms of
yeah.
my suggestion to people that wanting to have these conversations is educate yourself in terms of how to go about it, for sure. You know, whether it be, look, I've said it a few times now, but the Are You OK Day resourcing page, they have some fantastic stuff about how to start these conversations, because it can be difficult. It's not, doesn't come natural to everyone, for sure, right? It's a difficult thing to do, and you know, people will be concerned in the workplace. Am I overstepping boundaries? Am I acting appropriately and professionally by asking these questions? So educate yourself on it. If it's something that you want to start doing and it's something that you believe will benefit your business, but just those simple, are you okay? Is there anything I can do to support you? And then just those positive affirmations, you know, thank you. I really appreciate the work that you've been doing. This is fantastic. You know, it's, you know, passing on positive feedback is a really effective way of being able to increase people's morale and also break down sort of any barriers that may exist in discussion within your organisation. I'm sure there's, you know, there's a lot of businesses out there that would be suffering from just closed off or non-existent communication lines.
So we started the conversation a couple of weeks back around the context of ISO 45001.
Yeah.
So we've got the international standard for occupational health and safety management systems. We've got we've previously had the Australian standard 4801. There's different standards around the world. This is now a time when I think largely we're not operating where there are significant fatal risks that are unknown.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to say that, you know, we're 100% there, but I think that we're at a place in the occupational health and safety profession globally where there wouldn't be many tasks left that a corporate organisation would start to implement that they didn't know someone was going to die.
For sure.
So I think that, you know, we want to get to a point where, you know the life ending the risks that exist. In my view, what we're talking about today is probably the second most important risk that we should be managing, because if it's not managed, campaigned, improved, it's potentially the second place that we can cause fatalities. You know, when we have people taking their own life, and that's why I'm genuinely interested in this conversation. As an individual person who knows that they're not okay, they're not confident to speak out, maybe in the workplace environment. What you know, not just Australia, but you know, maybe in the US, those sorts of things. If you're somebody who is maybe predisposed to not being okay, what should you do?
No, the first thing is seek help, right? Whether that be speaking to somebody you're comfortable with, whether it be an anonymous employee assistance program, whether it be reaching out to helpline, or any
local doctor.
Absolutely, any number of the look. This isn't something that people need to fight on their own. The stigma around mental health and discussing and putting your hand up and saying, I'm not okay. You know, was it that slogan, it's okay to not be okay?
That's right.
You see that around a lot now? I think that's fantastic, because it is. People need to understand that, you know, the incidence of mental illness in Australia is stunning. Astounding. For a country that we believe to be the lucky country, we have the single biggest killer of men under the age of 45 is suicide.
That's right.
You know? We take our own lives around 9 a day. You know, and it's there's so much that that people can do when they want to reach out. You just got to understand, look, if you're not okay, that's cool. That's fine.
And given that the workplace is typically on third
that's
day,
it, right?
That there is a good chance that it's the industrial fatalities that we're not necessarily talking about.
Well, that's the thing. Organisations, you spend so much, you know, you spend 50% of your working hours there. In a lot of cases, they're, you know, they're highly resourced, sophisticated businesses that exist. That's where I really think corporations and business have an obligation to protect people, because they have the opportunity to. Right. They've got a captive audience of their people. They need to be asking questions around how you're feeling. How are you doing? What can I do better to support you? Not just at work, but in life in general. Because that person's giving so much of their life to you, to your business, right? You've got to be giving something back, not just cash. You can't just, it's not enough to just be, you know, we pay you well. No,
it's
Come on.
vision, mission, culture,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. So, interesting, reading a textbook earlier this morning, you know,
As we do.
in terms of prepping, you know, by chance on organisational behaviour. It's a textbook I picked up in 1994 that started my passion. The conversation hasn't changed. It's, you know, it has definitely been the same, that we are humans, we want to feel appreciated, we want to feel gratitude, we want to feel challenged, we want responsibility. It's not necessarily just about cash. So in terms of, and this is more about you and maybe these guys here in the studio. What do you guys, you know, in your mid-20s, what do you think when we're talking about this conversation? Do you think it's relevant to you guys? Like, and is it relevant to your friends? Is it relevant to your community?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's more relevant because we're saturated with more social media than people in their 40s and 50s.
Right.
So we're going to be copping it even harder.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
And it is like, we're the most at-risk group of suffering mental illness and suicide. Like, it's astounding, isn't it, to think that, and I think a lot of it is, when you ask that question, and does it affect you and your group, the fact that these guys are able to say, yeah, for sure. It just shows that the only way you're going to know that is if you talk about it, right? And that stigma that existed, you know, my dad's generation, there's no way him and his mates get together and like, how you feeling, mate?
Absolutely.
You good? Yeah.
Totally.
No, they're just talking about the footy or
I'm going to a board meeting
about their
tomorrow night.
lives. Yeah. Sorry, Mum.
Yeah,
But Dad definitely does that.
I'm at a board meeting tomorrow night. None of those people will actively engage in this conversation.
At all.
And they're all running organisations themselves, but they are all running organisations that, you know, if they don't, they're considering programs. That camera's playing up, is it?
SD cards, yeah, playing out.
SD,
No, it's
okay.
not full, it's
Is this one
corrupted.
right?
That one's all good.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I even see it socially, massively, right? So I just when I was, you know, through your teenage years and your early 20s and stuff like that, I'd never have had this conversation.
No.
Never. None of my friends would have either been called all sorts of things you can't say on TV if you started talking about this sort of stuff. But that's changed. I was out for dinner on Saturday night with a couple of my friends and talking to a mate of mine, and he just said, "Oh, I'm just not feeling right." And, you know, he's gone through a relationship change and work pressures and all these sorts of things, all these things that affect us, that all accumulate to make us holistically how we feel. Right? There's 1,000 different things that are going on in each of our lives, and they all impact us. And sometimes it can feel like they're snowballing. And I could just sense, you know, he's seemed a little less energetic and less himself last few times I've seen him. And we started talking, and he just said, I'm not okay. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just not feeling myself. And the whole table, there's a few of us, everyone was just engaged in this conversation about him. And it's like, mate, are you getting help? You should get help. Like, it's great to talk to me. I'm not qualified to help. I'm not qualified to, but I'm absolutely ready to listen anytime you want. Anytime you want to grab a beer, anytime you want to go for a run, whatever you want to do. But it's just starting that conversation. And you could tell at the end of that conversation, his face looked different. He just looked different. He felt the collective support of the people around him. And again, that's where, you know, we can all do that for people in our own personal life. And it's probably something that's simpler to do in your personal life, right? Because your friends, you know them better. Work colleagues are often strangers, right? Or people that you interact with on a as needs basis, or that you're forced into that scenario. So it's not, you don't know a lot of their background at times and stuff like this, what makes them tick. But that's where organisations that provide support and provide a strategy and a framework and initiatives and really promote mental health can encourage these discussions to occur. Maybe they're not in a group at work, but provide channels for people to go out and seek assistance in this space. Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. So, on a more personal note, this is a question that I ask all of our guests when they come on. What advice would you give a 10-year younger version of yourself?
Jeez. How long have I got?
As long as you want.
Travel more.
Yeah, travel
I love
more.
travel alone actually, but living abroad is the best. Keep your circle close. That's what one thing I would say. I think when you're young and you just want to collect friends, right? impress people, and none of that stuff matters. It's so irrelevant. And you know, the point you made about social media, it just, right? Like, I'd hate to be a kid now in that age, growing up with that sort of stuff, and everyone looks like they're having the best time ever, and there's no one's going to worry in the world, and sorry, they're broke and they're miserable too. But look, I think just keeping your circle close and really, you know, spending time with doing things that are meaningful to you. You know, like, I'm very close with my friends, with my family, love them very much, and we're constantly together. And it's something that anytime that I'm feeling down or feeling a bit lost or whatever in life, I lean back on the solid relationship I have with my family. It's something that gives me a real sense of happiness. And so that's something that, you know, I've been very fortunate in that regard. As I said, living abroad was amazing, an awesome experience. I'd encourage anyone that has an opportunity to go study abroad, go live abroad, do it while you're young before you get tied down with kids or mortgages. Don't get a mortgage. I'd say that to myself too. It's useless. It's pointless. You anchor yourself to one spot behind bricks. What for? Go have fun. And keep learning. Like, I love to learn. I study things out of curiosity all the time. I'm doing a mental health wellness practitioner's course at present, just to continue learning, and to sort of continue using your brain and never stop being curious is probably something that I'd say. Just don't stop being curious.
So,
I've got a whole list of others, but I can't say it. Don't. Should never pick up that call.
On the topic of being able to help people effectively, and the concept of, you know, when the plane's crashing, you pull down the oxygen will drop down, fit your own oxygen mask before you fit, you know, anybody else, or help anybody else. So help yourself first before you help other people. What would you recommend? You know, the principle of aiming for tip-top condition, if you like. What are some tactics that we can all implement ourselves? Yes, you know, if we're not feeling great, ask for help. But in terms of preventative strategies, individual for ourselves preventative strategies, what are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that we can all individually do on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis to help with prevention ourselves, so that we can then help other people?
I think it's really important to prioritize self-care, you know, in whatever way that looks like for yourself. If you love going for a run, make sure you make time for it. You know, we so often, we're so poor, aren't we, at prioritizing. We prioritize based on what other people's expectations are, and so often at the expense of our own, right? In terms of things that we wanted to do this, but I can't because I have to do this. I think self-prioritization, self-care, just finding whatever it is that you love. I love having saunas, right? I'm like a 75-year-old Russian woman. Love them. I go anytime I'm feeling stressed, or, you know, things are freaking out, or, you know, it's I can't handle all the work stuff that's going on, or whatever it might be. I love to just kick back, close your eyes, have a bath. I love having a bath as well. Have a bath, have a sauna, go for a run, go to the gym. You know, those sort of cliche stuff. You know, eat healthy, go to the gym. It works. You know, anytime you're going through, when you're feeling better, when you're eating better, and you're healthier. You know, just the biological impact that has on you, and your ability to think clearer, and the more positive thoughts that come from the release of hormones and pheromones in your brain. It's that works. I remember I got through, in my, must have been late teen years, I got through an entire breakup by just running every afternoon.
There you go.
Just running. Felt so much better for it. I don't remember her name now, but hey. And look, it's just, it's about that prioritization of yourself. I really do believe that that's a big thing you can do. And if that's not working, and if there's stresses, and, you know, people have financial stresses and work stresses and family stresses and obligations, and, you know, sick family members, and all these hundreds of different things that drive our emotions and take up our time, and you can feel really trapped by this sort of stuff. It's about identifying where you can get a breather in, right? Whom within your circle you can reach out to and you can speak with. And again, this is where I keep getting back to organisations and the role they can play, because so much of that time you're at work.
Absolutely.
And those feelings don't just stop when you get to work and you've got deadlines and reports to do, or, you know, you've got your bricks to lay, or your lawns to mow, whatever it is. that stuff stays. You know, all the outside pressures that we have placed upon us as humans, that carries with us through to work. So I just think that there's, you know, if you do have opportunities and if there are service offerings available in your organisation and you need assistance, take it, reach out and get them. And if you're a business leader and you don't have this framework in place or you don't have these support networks for your people, you got to do it. There are so many solutions out there. You look for one that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One thing on the strategy thing, the one thing we've implemented here at Best Practice, and I think it's been going again for probably 5, maybe 6 years, is what we call the Best Practice high five.
Yeah.
So it's like high five, you know, but it's exercise every day.
Yeah.
Meditate.
I saw your gym. That's quite
There
cool.
you go. Yeah, we've got the gym here. The surf's just there.
Yeah.
So you know, for me this morning is running on the beach, soft sand running on the beach. So it's exercise, meditate, or whatever your version of meditate might be. It might be teabagging in the surf. Eat amazing ingredients. And that's the counterintuitive thing that yes, we're stressed, we're not okay, and then a lot of people will shoot for comfort foods, which is, you know, sugar
or booze,
coffee, booze, etc., and that becomes this spiral. But in terms of, you know, omega-3 fatty acids that are in fish oil, you know, the good fats that are in things like avocados, eating fish instead of red meat, those types of things, that if you're starting to explore what are the right foods that I can be eating to prevent, if I'm so inclined to suffer a bit of depression or anxiety or those things that might be the case. Now, the other thing that's I think is really important as a leader here is encouraging all of my team to have goals.
Yeah.
And to be working towards those goals. So whether it's a professional goal here, well, it's definitely got to be professional goals and also personal goals. I want to know what their personal goals are, and then I'm pushing them, because then the sense that of hope, you know, in terms of the use of having people deploy hope as a counteraction of anxiety and potentially depression, because I've got something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward, not looking back.
Yeah.
You know, the concept of depression being looking back, you know, the concept of anxiety in terms of worry about the fear of the future. But if we've got people that have got, yes, that's a really amazing thing, and we'll talk about, you know, what's your most memorable holiday spot, you know, do you look forward to going there again? And then they bring up the positive feelings from the memorable holiday, and then they create hope around potentially doing that again as a tradition or a ritual. So that's just one small thing that we implemented, and I think aside from the frameworks of people that I can then see when the early indicators for me as a leader, how your goals going? What have you got going on? I don't have anything. Okay, well, let's work on that, you know, because then I know that they can start thinking about the future, and they can think about, and then if I'm not getting good responses, for me, they're my questions.
For sure. And I'm sure you've got people watching this now that are saying, yeah, that's cool for you because you've got a small team.
We do.
But
that's exactly right.
Even in these big organisations, I was in Amazon, and they're the biggest employer in the world. I'd say they've got to be close.
Yeah.
However many hundreds of thousands of employees they have, it's all made up of small teams.
Correct.
Right?
Teams of 7.
It's all made up of a manager that's got a few people reporting, and I had people reporting to me, and I was like you. I miss those guys loads. I knew everything about them. I knew, you know, were they married, were they single, did they have kids, what external pressures may that person be facing. You know, one of the guys that worked with me at Amazon, he's got young kids and a wife, and he's very active in his church and stuff like that. I knew he had things outside of work that he loved that added to his life. I used to tell him all the time, get out of work, go do that now. You know, you put in enough hours, go man, come on. But yeah, it's about understanding the people that you work with, what triggers them, what priorities they have in their life, what external stresses may they have. You know, someone's just had a newborn kid and they're getting no sleep. What are you doing by putting extra pressure on that person to meet deadlines? What are you not doing to reallocate some of their work and easing their burden on them, because they're going to burn out. You'll either lose them or they'll be unproductive anyway. They're going to be miserable. There's no point. So yeah, I think your message there is a strong one, and it's a really transferable one regardless of size of organisation.
Absolutely.
You know, you've got your small group of people that you're responsible for or with, and people who report through to you, or people that you support, and understanding what each other's lives outside of these four walls look like is a really important and, you know, a really supportive aspect. And it's what we're about, right? We're humans. This is what sets us apart from animals, or maybe we could learn a bit from a few of them, but in terms of being able to, you know, express affection, express emotion, to be compassionate, to be empathetic in the way that we approach things, that's what makes us human. And, you know, that shouldn't stop because you put on your work boots or you do your tie up and you head into the office every morning. The best organisations I've ever worked in, that stuff is encouraged, open. It's, you know, they're supportive. There's communicative environments. You know, I've worked in a couple of places that you walk in, they're so sterile and stuffy. People sit in their little booths. They don't talk to each other. Miserable places.
But they're, you know, the question is, and I'm making an assumption here, but they're not the organisations that have hyper value.
No, absolutely not.
No,
Their priorities are driven by something outside of empowering their people, about support, about you know, recognition of your work. It's just I'm here to work you to the bone, and you know.
I mean, there's a lesson there, right? If you know, the organisations that are being talked about, you know, the Ubers, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Apples of the world. You know, there's going to be hot spots where stuff's not going right in those organisations. Sure. But broadly speaking, the percentages of supportive and genuine desire to look after people are much higher as a percentage.
Yeah.
You know, than the likes of, say, the financial industry, the legal industry. So you know, this is a I'm calling you guys out that it's not okay to be pushing people past, you know, what might be an acceptable. I'm going to say 40 to 50 hour week. You know, it's not acceptable. It's no longer acceptable. And don't laugh and go, ha, that's okay. Don't, you know, yes, I work really hard and I work 7 days a week, but it's my business.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm doing what I love.
Yeah.
And so it's as much as my hobby, and I use my hobby time as much as my work time, and the two things melt together because I've designed a job that I love doing 24/7.
Absolutely. Employers should encourage their people to work smart. Not
correct.
hard.
That's exactly right.
There's no badge of honour in an X number of hours done per week.
No.
So you hear of people that have got, I've got 3 months of annual leave saved up. Or I haven't taken annual leave in 4 years. It's like, what's wrong with you?
That's right. It's not a badge of honour. No, that's right.
Do you like live your life? Like,
that's right. Yeah.
Come on, man. You work. You know, you work to live. You don't live to work.
That's exactly right.
And you know, there are different industries where the culture in those industries is it is what it is, isn't it? But I think it's going to change. I think there's an evolution in those spaces. You see the big consulting firms and the big banks.
The tipping points right now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of conversation going on within those businesses. Like, I'll give you an example. Like KPMG, for example, they're working closely with a guy called Mitch Wallace at the moment from Heart on Your Sleeve. You might have seen him on LinkedIn. He's promotes some really excellent messaging. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of stuff that they're doing through that channel at the moment, where historically I wouldn't have thought that those consulting firms are, you know, that's probably an area that you would have identified as they're going to be like almost like a slave factory, right? It's like, it's a tough one. But and the thing about those organisations is mental health is going to be their biggest health risk to an employee. Like, they're not working in a high risk operational environment. There's nothing that's going to cause them physical harm. Right, absolutely. Yep. It's the mental health and psychosocial risks that their people would suffer from. The workers' compensation claim, the statistics within banking, legal sectors, consulting firms, they're astounding in terms of the percentage of workers' compensation claims that are as a result of mental health. And those claims are, on average, 6 times more expensive. They last 4 times on average longer than a physical health claim. So they would be suffering. And they, you know, some of those organisations that are so driven by the bottom line and so, you know, profit driven, they've got to see that, well, us not taking care of our people and us burning our people out and us not investing in the welfare and the wellness and the mental health of our people is costing us tons of cash.
Absolutely.
Look at our absenteeism, look at our presenteeism, look at our workers' comp rates, look at the lack of productivity from this downtrodden workforce of people that don't feel like they have an opportunity to speak. So yeah, it's awesome to see some change in some of those organisations. I think traditionally some of those industries that you would look at and say that's a high risk industry from a psychosocial mental health perspective.
Absolutely. So 2 more questions.
Go.
The first one is our audience. What can they help you with? What are you interested to know from our audience?
Oh, look, I think it'd be fantastic just to understand where, like, just to continue to generate these discussions. You know, in terms of what you can help me with, I would just love to see that these discussions are going on in your own internal businesses, that your people feel that they have an opportunity and an avenue to reach out to, people to have a chat with. We've got a viewer question there.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. No, Mike.
It's all good.
So, look, if any of your viewers have any questions for me in particular, I'm not a psychologist. I specialize in sort of workplace health and safety and mental health consulting, helping companies build a framework, helping them identify what their issue is, and then working out solutions, practical, sensible solutions to address them. You know, this is certainly not a one-size-fits-all sort of situation whatsoever. So yeah, if you need any assistance, if any of your viewers need any assistance, reach out to me.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to tag Matt and put his handles in the description below the YouTube video, and then we'll also tag Matt when we put the video up on LinkedIn. So you can DM Matt, I suggest, a personal message.
Slide into my DMs.
Yeah, slide into his LinkedIn DMs. Yeah, and catch up with Matt. So reach out to him. Doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Yeah,
we'll put his handles there and his comments. Okay. Last question, and this is probably the most important question of the whole interview.
Oh, no.
In 12 months' time,
yeah,
what's the impact that you've made on the world that you want to be celebrating?
I would just look, and it certainly lies in this space, absolutely, for me. I would love to just, you know, the more people I work with, the more people I get exposed to through these discussions and through the work that I'm doing with these various organisations. I just love to see it. It's a topic that's no longer shrouded in any form of taboo, where it's openly discussed. And I'd love to see businesses take a strategic, data-driven approach to the wellness and mental health of their people. You know, the same way they do when they protect the physical health. You have 1,000 metrics, 1,000 proactive indicators. You even measure the number of times your people miss at work, which, by the way, is bizarre. Using those type of trying to apply the same framework and philosophy and data-driven strategic approach to the protection of mental health. There are solutions and there are ways of doing it. I just love to see an increase in the level of sophistication that we're applying to this area, because, you know, the consequences of us just continuing to be really well-intentioned but poorly executed are dramatic, and we can do better. There's solutions out there. We can do better.
Okay, awesome. Cool. All right, so thank you so much for coming on. So if you are somebody who is inspired by this conversation, check out Matt's LinkedIn profile. Check out what we're doing on Best Practice TV. Check out what's going on with Nirvana.
Nirvana Safety and Wellness.
Nirvana Safety and Wellness.
Rebranded.
Yeah, brand new brand in the last week.
Thanks,
So check out Nirvana Safety and Wellness on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, website. It's all on the way. It's all in the pipeline. So we'll keep adding the handles to the description. So keep watching the description below this video, because we will keep updating it as new information comes through. Let me know in the comments below, was this something that really helped you? Do you feel inspired to take the concept of wellness, well-being, and mental health back into your organization? Doesn't matter what level you are. Don't sit back. And I think the one message for me today is this isn't about sitting back and letting somebody else take control of this. This is about you inspiring and starting the conversation. And this is what culture is all about. Culture in organizations and organizational improvement it all starts with us. It all starts with us being the champion, us being the advocate, us being the person that gets this thing going, and then people will lead, well, the people will then follow your example, because you'll be leading by example. Okay, that's it for Talking Business in this particular episode. If you want to check us out, hit the like button if you really love this video. Hit the subscribe button, more importantly, to give me a bit of a signal that you guys are keen to know what's going on and you're going to start following this YouTube channel, and turn on your notifications. Let me know in the comments, was this helpful, yes or no? If it wasn't helpful, please hit no, type no, N-O. Let me know what wasn't helpful about it so we can use it to keep improving every day. And I will see you right here next time on Best Practice TV. Bye for now.